Hello everyone, it's Leon here, and I am with Phil.
Hello.
Who has been playing Payday 2. It's not called a heist anymore, is it?
It's not, it's just Payday 2.
Just Payday 2.
Although there is still quite a lot of heisting to be done.
There is still a lot of heisting, yes, and different kinds of heisting when I discovered when I played at the weekend. First of all, what did you give it?
I gave it 7.
7. And what got it that score, pros and cons?
Okay, well, pros, it's much more diverse than the first game. So you just saw there were sort of carrying bags out into the street and into a van, whereas before you would just kind of have loot. It was just sort of
you just sort of stood next to the van,
nebulous entity, yeah. So you're sort of carrying bags around now. There are things, there's more in terms of, there's like a class system where there's like an enforcer who's good at taking out the cops. There's a mastermind who's good at kind of crowd control, dealing with hostages and stuff. Technician who's good with drills. And so the lean that I've got on there is because I'm carrying a bag, so you need to kind of really think about when you're going to be sort of making away with the loot and stuff, and you can even make a sort of assembly line with the four of you spaced apart and chuck it between you and things
it's
like
unusual
that.
to see a game, isn't it, where you actually have to physically manhandle material around. Normally you just have magic pockets and you pick stuff up.
Yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, and it does a lot of things that you want a bank heist game to do. I'm first of all surprised that there aren't more bank heist games, because it's just an amazing concept for a video game. And so, there's plenty of like drills and blowing open safes and things like that. It's exactly what you want to be doing, and there's specialised kit that you can upgrade over time by doing more jobs offline or online. And
you can obviously avoid slaughter to some extent if you do a fairly professional job. I mean,
yeah, you can. In
theory,
it
doesn't always have to turn into a bloodbath like most of yours did.
Yeah, well, absolutely, without exception. There's definitely a stealthy route to be taken now, and I've seen it happen. I've seen developers do it. I haven't managed to do it. But yeah, you start each mission in casing mode where no one knows that you're a horrible police murdering bank robber, so you can walk around the shop and like suss out where the safe is, where your objective is, and things like that. And so you can, if you play your cards right, you can sort of like take out a guard without anyone noticing, answer his walkie-talkie. There's even, I think, a particular skill that makes you extra convincing when answering his walkie-talkie, so that no one raises the alarm then. Or someone else can already be at the safe drilling, and if they've leveled up all their drilling skills, the drill doesn't take very long. And so, yeah, the class system works really well. It's quite tactical. The cons are that the AI is still terrible. I mean, it's not really designed to be played in single player. Not many people will play it as an exclusively single player game. The AI, the friendly AI is broken in that regard. But the police are also sort of immersion breakingly silly.
We saw a couple of people there, just like the guy just walking up past you. I found I was almost having to go up to some of the police when I was playing it and kind of prod them gently to say, I'm here, and they would sort of turn around and go, all right, and like they weren't really that engaged.
Yeah, as a rule, you feel really cool. You feel like you're in heat or something until you walk out into the street, and then you realise that half the cops aren't even looking at you, and it doesn't. It feels very much like a game rather than a nice filmic moment.
One of the weirdest things I found when I played at the weekend was one of the sort of the heists, and I'm sort of doing air quotes there. I'm not really doing air quotes, but one of the heists was you had to go and cause a certain amount of damage within a mall.
Yeah.
And I did that, and I got into the mall, and I was sort of casing the joint. I was kind of like, okay, well, I can't. I was thinking maybe I could find like something that could do it in a non-aggressive way, and in the end, I pulled a gun out. And then I couldn't even work out what I was meant to be shooting. I was just shooting like headphones and laptops.
It turns out that windows are the most valuable thing in the world, basically.
So I could not make anything sort of register. You can't see anything on the screen. Some of the feedback can be quite bad. It didn't tell you if you were doing damage or not. So I was just kicking over like hairdryers. And
yeah, I think that's probably the weakest mission. I should say as well that all through the preview stage they made a big deal out of there being 30 missions. There's actually, I think, 6 or 7 distinct levels, and there are 30... variations on it.
It's like when they say like 30 tracks and actually mean 15, and the rest you go back around the other way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So this is the jewellery store.
Yeah. Like, this is casing, isn't it? So you're wandering around, you're checking out, you're free to sort of explore until you put the mask on.
Yeah, and then there's a brief few seconds of slow motion, which is pretty cool actually, so that you can take someone out through melee, without them having chance to scream or anything like that. So this would be like the vanilla version of this mission, and then you'd go back and you'd have to steal like a tiara, and then they just add a tiara into this level. So there are certain randomised elements like where the safe is and things like that, where the security guard are. And it's on one level it's quite impressive that there are these sort of vaguely procedural elements to each round to make it a little bit different. But it's the same level. There's
that does actually sound a lot similar to Payday 1, which was great. But there were, I think, 6, maybe 7 heists. I think there was a 7th DLC heist, and then that was it. So this is basically the same, but with some extra bits.
And in the first one, there was only really one in a bank big heist job. The rest were kind of like escaping. It was almost like a little micro story within itself. There were more separate jobs in this. Each some of the jobs actually are kind of 3-parters. There's one called Framing the Frame, where you rob a jewelry store and then rob the person that you sell. No, rob an art gallery. Sorry, and then you rob the person that you sell the paintings to. So there's certainly more content, but not maybe as much as we were led to believe. Also, it's still just that tiny little bit broken. It's still held together with string a little bit, and as much as you sort of want this to be an amazing game because of the concept, it does sort of let you down a little bit with clumsiness. That said, the weapon feedback is really good. The shooting actually feels really nice.
Yeah, the guns are really sort of quite meaty and quite sort of powerful.
I think part of that comes down to the Battlefield style crosshair and the sort of the really thumpy sound that you get when you actually hit somebody.
It's not an amazingly pretty game, really, isn't it? And I was surprised with the mall one. I was astonished with the mall, walking around, going up to, like, they had like a mock Apple shop and they had like mock sort of handbag shops, and you walk into it and you're like, well, where's like the detail and the texture?
Where are the people? I found
you can see here it's just big blank textures. There's not a lot of texture to it.
I think the worst room in gaming while I was playing it. Oh, there's a man just standing there.
Just doing nothing.
It was just a sort of silver room. It's like when you see like a developer diary and someone's building up a room. It was like stage 1 of that. It was just a room. So it's oddly jagged and lacking in texture. And I found a mug that was basically a hexagon, and that's quite.
The trees are quite astonishing as well.
Yeah, and it shouldn't be as much of a problem as it is. But I'm too shallow to really let that go.
I don't think it's shallow. I think that there is a level of finish here that is astonishingly kind of low rent, just like the pixelation on the screens and the posters we just saw back there. There's some things they've basically kind of gone, well, this isn't high priority, so it'll just be a really blocky, low-res, highly compressed kind of JPEG that will just slap on something.
Really, the reason is, I guess, this is like a AA game. This is what a AA game is like in 2013. These are the studios that aren't indie studios, but they're still quite low budget.
I wouldn't say it's a AA. It's like a triple B.
A triple B, okay. But it's a very small team, Overkill Software, and I'm sure a very low budget as well. And they've got amazing ideas, and you can't really fault them for the number of ideas that they've tried to include in this, but they just haven't had either the budget or the manpower to really see them through to the level that you'd want to play. I
think they've overreached here to some extent, where they've tried to make it a full price kind of retail game. Where the first one was like a DLC game. I forget how much it was now. I don't think it wasn't.
I think it was 20, wasn't it?
Was it really 20?
I think it was 20.
Oh, God, I thought it was.
Correct us if we're wrong.
Yeah. But it was a DLC game or a PSN game, and you felt like you forgave it a little bit of its rough edges because it was this sort of DLC game from a studio. This feels like they've tried to make a higher level of game, but actually they made the same sort of...
It ends up feeling a bit like Payday 1,
yeah. Yeah, they've made the same technical level again.
Yeah, and for all the new inclusions, there's a really deep character customization and mass customization system. There are loot drops after every level. There is a lot... It feels a lot different when you first start playing it, but eventually you do start to feel that you're playing Payday 1 again, and it's because of this sort of vague clumsiness to everything that you do. It's a bit of a shame.
Yeah, and you do... I mean, when this was first sort of announced, it was kind of described as a sort of a Left 4 Dead with banks. And obviously that's not a PS3 game, but...
It's a game people want to play.
I think it's what people want it to be, don't they? They want it to be that kind of 4-player co-op sort of incredible kind of experience, and it's a bit clunky and it's a bit rough around the edges, and you absolutely have to play it with people you know, because if you let any randoms in, it's a disaster. I was playing it and I played a game, I had it public, I thought we'll see what happens, and I had a couple of people turn up and everything was fine. They were following my lead, it was all being patient and it was going beautifully, and then a fourth person joined and just straight away the masks came on. He was just kind of, I'm just going to shoot stuff, and so that was it. The whole level was gone.
Yeah, and some people just don't get it.
No.
I've actually only played it with people that I've known, and I absolutely agree that you do need to, and actually not even just people that you know, but you really should play it with the same people that you know every time, so that then one of you can concentrate on each skill tree. So it's quite unique in that sense of being a co-op game, that you need to build a little family of criminals with, and you get to know what everyone's going to do in each level and things. And I think only then, because there are only sort of 6 or 7 variations, only then will you get to the stage where you could probably do it stealthily. I'm still not there yet. Maybe after like 10 more repeated attempts at the jewellery store, I'll be able to do it without anyone seeing me. But
it's an interesting kind of setup, isn't it? Because part of the what you get out of the game depends on what you bring to it in terms of preparation and kind of the desire to play the game properly, how it wants you to play it in terms of casing and being stealthy and hacking and picking locks.
Yeah, that's true.
It just turns into a bloodbath.
Yeah, you need a lot of patience with the drill as well. The drill takes 350 seconds to get through something.
I was astonished when I was putting this video together. There were whole chunks of just you lot standing around a drill and a bar that never moves.
Yeah, well, if you're trying to do it stealthily as well, there's literally nothing else to do while the drill's going on. Because if you move, you'll be seen by somebody. So you just have to sit by the drill. And this is kind of the problem. They've just thought, well, this is, we're going to make the stealthy approach, but then it's not polished. It's not been thought about.
It feels like that drilling sort of stuff and some of the hacking things as well, like the thermal drill as well for the vaults.
Yeah,
that could be half the time it takes, and it would still be a long time.
Yeah, it feels like you could probably. There's a really strange payout system where it says the job's going to pay out $392,000, and then most of it's just siphoned off into your offshore account. Like, it would be much more satisfying.
I didn't understand
that. Because get all that money.
So he goes, you've made like £75,000. You can spend £5.
Yeah, it's like, well, it just hardly seems worth it. I've killed hundreds of policemen. Yeah. I'm like one of the most wanted criminals in the country.
So much blood on my hands. I can't even afford a new car.
Yeah. So that's a minor grievance compared to some of the other things going on. I am still going to play this for quite a while, I imagine, after release. It is a very enjoyable game, but yeah, just lacking in that level of polish.
Well, I want to get like you and Joel, get a crew together and do it properly, because, as I say, I gave up at the weekend because I had random people that would just, as soon as they turned up, would just Leroy and it would go horribly wrong.
Yeah, so play it properly, everybody.
So 7 out of 10, great ideas, maybe not as well executed as it could be.
Yeah, still quite endearing, lacking a bit of polish.
Lovely, thank you very much.
Cheers.